Dear students, welcome to this session. Today we will learn about the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is one of the most important endocrine glands in the body of vertebrates. It is otherwise called as hypophysis. It is a small organ located at the base of the brain. It produces many important hormones, hence plays many vital functions in the body. Pituitary is concerned with multiplicity of vital processes in the system. It produces 9 protein or polypeptide hormones. These exert their influence on other endocrine glands of the body. Hence, pituitary is called as the master gland. But other endocrine secretions also act on the functioning of the pituitary. Hence, all the endocrine glands are interdependent and influence each other. Let us now see the divisions of the pituitary. Pituitary is divided into anterior lobe or adenohypophysis, posterior lobe or neurohypophysis, and intermediate lobe. Anterior pituitary produces 6 important hormones. They are 1. Thyrotrophin or thyroid stimulating hormone or TSH. 2. Follicle stimulating hormone or FSH. 3. Luteinizing hormone or LH. 4. Prolactin. 5. Growth hormone or somatotrophin or GH. And 6. Adenocorticotrophic hormone or corticotrophin or ACTH. Of these, TSH, LH and FSH are glycoproteins in nature, and the other 3 are polypeptides in nature. Prolactin acts on the mammary gland and causes the development of the mammary gland and milk secretion. Other 5 hormones are called trophic hormones. They act on other endocrine glands to produce their secretions. One another substance called beta lipoprotein, beta LPH, is also produced by anterior pituitary. The exact function of this substance is not known, but it is found that it resembles the opioid peptides, that is the endorphin and enkephalins in structure. The intermediate lobe produces alpha, beta and gamma melanocyte stimulating hormones. Altogether, these are called as melanotrophins or MSH. The posterior pituitary produces 2 important hormones. They are oxytocin and vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone or ADH. A variety of environmental factors are found to be influencing the functions of the pituitary. Both the external and internal factors are involved in the regulation. Central nervous system plays an important role. All these factors are influenced through the central nervous system. A part of the CNS called hypothalamus plays an important role in the regulation. Hypothalamic releasing factors activate the activity of the pituitary, whereas hypothalamic inhibiting factors reduce the activity. Let us see the anatomy of pituitary gland. Pituitary is a compound gland of internal secretions. It is placed at the base of the brain. It is located in the sella turcica, a concavity in the sphenoid bone of the skull. It is the best protected and least accessible organ of the body. It is covered by a dura mater. A shelf-like fold of this membrane forms diaphragma sellae and extends around the infundibular stalk. Pituitary enlarges during pregnancy and certain other conditions. As it is located near the optic chiasma, it produces visual symptoms during enlargement. Let us go to the developmental anatomy of pituitary. Pituitary is ectodermal in origin, but we can see 2 different sources of origin. Neurohypophysis originates from the infundibulum of brain. It is an outpocketing of the hypothalamus. Anterior and intermediate lobes are originating from Rathke's pouch, an outgrowth of the mouth. Now we will see the nerve supply of pituitary. Pituitary is supplied by a pair of sympathetic nerves and a pair of parasympathetic nerves. The sympathetic fibers originates from the perivascular plexus. The parasympathetic fibers originates from the petrosal nerves and hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract. Let us look into the blood supply of pituitary. Pituitary is highly vascularized organ. A pair of posterior hypophyseals arising from the internal carotid arteries supply the posterior lobe of pituitary. A pair of anterior hypophyseals originating from internal carotid and posterior communicating arteries to the circle of Willis supply the posterior pituitary and the intermediate lobe. Venules forms the hypophyseal portal system. These empty into the sinuses, dura mater, or in the basis sphenoid bone. Let us discuss the histology of anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary consists of two types of cells, chromophils and chromophores. Chromophils are cells which are granular in type. They are secretory cells which stain with acidic and basic dyes. Chromophils can be grouped into two types of cells. They are acidophils, that is cells which stain with acidic dye. They stain red or orange with acidic dye and hence called as acidophils. The acidophils are of two types, somatotrophs which produce growth hormone or GH, and lactotrophs or mammotrophs which produce prolactin. Basophils are cells which stain blue or green with basic dyes. 20% of the cells are basophils. They also consist of two types of cells, gonadotrophs which produce FSH and LH, and thyrotrophs which produce thyroid stimulating hormone. Chromophores are cells which are agranular in type. Nearly 25% of the total cells are chromophores. These will not stain with either acidic or basic dye. They consist of corticotrophs. Corticotrophs produce adenocorticotrophin and beta LPH. Let us see the histology of posterior pituitary. Posterior pituitary produces two important hormones, vasopressin and oxytocin. Vasopressin is otherwise called as antidiuretic hormone. These two are produced by neuronal cells, posterior pituitary. Neuronal cells of the supraoptic nucleus of hypothalamus produces vasopressin, and the neuronal cells of the paraventricular nucleus of hypothalamus produces oxytocin. These cells are relatively larger in size and hence they are called as magnocellular. They are located on either side of the optic tract and hence called supraoptic, and the others are located on either side of the ventricle, hence called as paraventricular. These myelinated nerve tracts descend downwards through the infundibulum and the neural stalk and end in the neuronal cells of the neural lobe. Intermediate lobe consists of polygonal cells. The polygonal cells stain with basic dyes. They are also secretory in nature and consist of vesicles. These vesicles are found to be containing iodine. The cytological significance of the presence of iodine is not yet studied well. The intermediate lobe shows cytological changes in certain animals as frog, which change their color as white and dark during different seasons and according to the surroundings. So seasonal alterations in the cytology can be observed in birds, reptiles, amphibians and fishes. Also, anterior lobe shows seasonal changes in the cytology. During annual breeding seasons, anterior lobe cells are found to be more secretory in nature. This is in accordance with the functions they have to serve. Now we will look into the hormones produced by the pituitary gland and the functions that they serve. The first hormone produced by pituitary is thyroid stimulating hormone or thyrotrophin or TSH. This hormone is produced by the thyrotrophs of the anterior pituitary. This hormone acts on the thyroid gland to initiate or stimulate the production of thyroxine or T4 and triiodothyronine or T3. Abnormalities of this hormone production leads to diseased conditions, and decrease in the production of the hormone leads to hypothyroidism. Nowadays, recombinant human TSH is available for treating hypothyroidism. In some persons, mutation of the TSH receptors can induce hypothyroidism. Some persons produce antibodies against their own TSH receptors. This causes an increase in T3 and T4. This abnormality is called as thyrotoxicosis or Graves' disease. The second group of hormones produced by the pituitary are called gonadotrophins. Gonadotrophins include follicle stimulating hormone or FSH and luteinizing hormone or LH. These two hormones are very essential for the proper functioning of the reproductive organs. These are produced by the gonadotrophs of the pituitary gland. Abnormality of production of this hormone causes hypogonadism. Hypogonadism is associated with a decrease in the sperm production in males. Ultimately, this leads to sterility in males. In females, this is associated with abnormality in the reproductive cycle. This also ultimately causes sterility in females. The third hormone produced by pituitary is called prolactin. Prolactin is produced by lactotrophs of anterior pituitary. The function of prolactin is mainly in the differentiation and development of mammary gland. Also, it functions in milk secretion. Hence, this hormone is otherwise called as mammotrophin. Besides this, prolactin maintains corpora lutea in some animals, that is ovarian structure, which produces progesterone, the hormone of pregnancy. In some animals, as pigeon, this hormone is responsible for crop milk production. This hormone involves in maintaining other characteristics as maintenance of maternal behavior, nest building, retrieval of scattered young ones, etc. Besides these functions, the hormone is found to be acting on the liver as a secondary growth hormone involving in the metabolic functions. It acts on the testes to increase the production of testosterone. Testes and other sex organs are found to be having prolactin receptors. Prolactin also can act as an autocrine or paracrine modulator of immune activity. Now we will see the abnormalities associated with prolactin production. An increase in production of prolactin causes hyperprolactinemia. In women, hyperprolactinemia is associated with amenorrhea, that is absence of reproductive cycle, and galactorrhea, that is an increase in milk production and secretion. In males, an increased prolactin level will cause hypogonadism. This causes a decreased sex drive, decrease in sperm production, and impotence in males. Also, this is associated with breast enlargement in man. This abnormality is called as gynecomastia, but milk production is not found to be associated with this. The fourth hormone produced by anterior pituitary is growth hormone. Otherwise, this hormone is called as somatotrophin or GH. These are produced by the somatotrophs of anterior pituitary. The major function of the hormone is on controlling physiology, growth, and metabolism in the body. The physiology and growth is regulated by various mechanisms. A, direct effect, that is, the hormone acts through the hormone receptors present in the body. Indirect effect. Indirect effect is through IGF-1, that is insulin-like growth factor 1 produced by liver. So the hormone acts through IGF-1 indirectly and activate metabolism. The third way, it acts on the walls of the vascular system, breaking down the polysaccharides into glucose. This glucose gets absorbed into the system. Ultimately, growth hormone regulates growth, metabolism of protein, carbohydrate, and lipids in the body and help for growth and development of the organism. We will see the abnormality associated with growth hormone. A reduction in growth hormone production causes the abnormality called dwarfism, reduced growth, and an increase in the production can cause gigantism, an abnormal growth. Gigantism in adults is associated with a condition called acromegaly. Acromegaly is a condition where the facial bones are malformed, giving an ugly look because growth hormone is associated with skeleton formation. The next hormone produced by adrenal cortex is called adrenocorticotrophin or corticotrophin or ACTH. This hormone acts on the adrenal cortex. This hormone is produced by the corticotrophs of the pituitary. This adrenal cortex in turn produces glucocorticoids. Corticotrophs produce ACTH, beta lipoprotein or beta LPH and beta endorphins. This corticotrophin gets degraded to MSH. Hence, the activity it resembles to MSH or melanocyte stimulating hormone. An uptake causes an increase in pigmentation of skin, which is called as hyperpigmentation. This is due to degradation of the ACTH into MSH or melanocyte stimulating hormone. This condition is called Addison's disease, which is characterized by hyperpigmentation throughout the body. The skin gets deposited by dark pigments. This hormone is associated with stress. During stress, more ACTH is produced. Hence, ACTH is said to be a stress management hormone. An increase in amount of ACTH increases the production of glucocorticoids, which ultimately helps in management of stress. Melanocyte stimulating hormone or melanotrophin or intermedin or MSH. The actual function of this hormone is on pigmentation. It causes pigmentation of the body, skin, hair, etc. Let us see the hormones produced by the posterior pituitary gland. Posterior pituitary produces two important hormones, oxytocin and vasopressin. Vasopressin is otherwise called as antidiuretic hormone or ADH. These two hormones are produced in both males as well as females. They are nanopeptides containing 9 amino acids. In vertebrates other than mammals, arginine oxytocin is the only substance that is present. This arginine vasopressin is supposed to be the phylogenetic precursor for oxytocin and vasopressin in mammals. Vasopressin is mainly produced with reference to plasma osmolarity and blood volume. Other factors as blood pressure, stress, nausea, etc. also can influence the production of vasopressin. An abnormality in the production of vasopressin leads to diabetes insipidus. Diabetes insipidus are of two types. One is hypothalamic diabetes insipidus. In this case, there is a reduction in the production of antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin. This is associated with hypothalamic malfunction due to tumor, lesion, or head injury involving hypothalamus. Renal diabetes insipidus is associated with abnormality with the kidney. Kidney fails to respond to ADH due to abnormality in the receptors. These both conditions leads to an increase in the volume of urine production, causing diabetes insipidus. The major function of oxytocin is milk ejection. This also functions in inducing uterine contractions during parturition. Also, this signals uterine contractions at the termination of pregnancy. Oxytocin also is responsible to bring maternal behavior in mothers. Stimuli as suckling, both auditory and visual, induces the production of oxytocin. So we can summarize the events like this. So we have learned about the introduction of pituitary, its position, location, and its importance with reference to other endocrine glands. We have seen the parts of the pituitary, that is anterior pituitary, posterior pituitary, and intermediate lobe. We have seen the hormones produced by these different parts of the pituitary. That is, the anterior pituitary produces 6 important hormones: thyroid stimulating hormone or thyrotrophin or TSH, luteinizing hormone or LH, follicle stimulating hormone or FSH, growth hormone or somatotrophin or GH, adrenocorticotrophic hormone or ACTH or corticotrophin. These are the hormones produced by the anterior pituitary. The intermediate lobe of pituitary produces melanocyte stimulating hormone or MSH, which involve in pigmentation in the body. Posterior pituitary produces two important hormones, oxytocin and vasopressin. Oxytocin is associated with milk ejection, maternal behavior, uterine contractions, etc. Vasopressin is associated with blood volume regulation, maintenance of plasma osmolarity, etc. Abnormality in these hormones can cause abnormal conditions as deficiency diseases. Abnormality in thyroid stimulating hormone production, it causes thyrotoxicosis, which is due to an increase in thyroid hormone production. Follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, when in abnormal condition, results in hypogonadism, characterized by sterility in male as well as in females. Abnormal prolactin production produces hyperprolactinemia, characterized by galactorrhea and oligoria in females, and sterility associated with hypogonadism in males. Males shows reduced sexual drive, reduction in the sperm count, and decreased libido. Abnormal growth hormone production causes dwarfism, that is reduction in the growth causing dwarfism. An increase in growth hormone production causes gigantism as well as acromegaly associated with malformed bone formation. Abnormality in adrenocorticotrophin production causes the disease called Addison's disease, characterized by hyperpigmentation. In the case of posterior pituitary, abnormality causes the disease called diabetes insipidus.